Hello, patrons, and welcome to your episode of Edit Club for June 2021. As you may remember, which I did not, there was no Edit Club last month. I completely spaced out and forgot about it while I was doing my sort of time off, minding my family time. I thought I'd pre-recorded it and scheduled it, but I guess I didn't. So we're going to make good on that today with an extra deep Edit Club, which isn't going to look at one project, but going to look at two projects. The first of which is our documentary on Demon Souls, which is currently deep in production. So that's a sort of a new look we've never done. And we'll check in on the trailer that I cut as well. And then after that, we're going to have a look at Loop Hero as well. And because of the type of projects that we were working on, or I guess because I was not going to be available much during that month, and I just finished my Dishonored doc, which I basically edited myself. Both of these projects are heavily involved with our new type of I don't know what we're calling it, like a dual editor situation or a partnership edit. In any case, both of these were a lot of work. The lion's share of the work was done by Jeremy Jane. The Loop Hero documentary was his own project, almost from top to bottom. All I did was do the interviews, and then I did maybe 3 days of finishing on the doc. I moved some stuff around. I added tweaked some gameplay. I added motion graphics. I cut one or two parts. But aside from that, that was him. And then this one, the Demon Souls doc, we're basically doing a 50-50 on, where I recorded all the interviews. He has done an assembly build here, which I'm looking at right now, which has a lot of stuff like this in it. Interesting notes, places where he thinks there should be voiceover, stuff like that. And I'm in the process of finishing this one. This is probably maybe 50% done at this stage. It still needs a script, it still needs stand-ups, it still needs a lot of B-roll, and it needs all of the sort of tweaking and pacing and stuff like that, but a lot of it's been done. The assembly build and a lot of the B-roll coverage has also been done by Jeremy, and this is helping us to tackle projects faster. It's also helping us just add more to the projects because, quite frankly, editing is really time-intensive, mentally taxing work. But this way, I get, instead of starting from the start, I get this fantastically constructed assembled documentary, which then I get to come in with 100% of my energy on, which is super, super cool. And then and then make hopefully a super fun documentary. I'm also editing the Thief doc at the moment, which I've been producing for the best part of a month alongside all this sort of stuff. So it's also helping us, quite frankly, do more work. So let's have a look at Jeremy's work that he's done here. I'll be first to say that this is, not a finished doc, so please don't be too critical of Jeremy's timeline cleanliness. At least my OCD brain always has a bit of I try and crunch it all down when I first get in here. He uses a lot of different what would you call these layers for the music. That's the thing that always throws me. But there's a lot going on here. He's also done an incredible job color coding all of this, which I'm guessing was for him because they all seem to be in their little chapters here. Although maybe it is for me as well, so I can see the length of these chapters. I also have I have a script already put together based on this. It was so easy to watch the documentary. You can basically watch this from start to finish. There's just whole sections where we're here looking for flame lurkers, fight flame lurker PS5 footage, PS3 footage. All of this gameplay is actually already here. So if we come here to the gameplay section, the gameplay as it is here is all 20 batches. Is there more than 20 batches? I forget. I'll have to double check. And then we have PS3 gameplay here, which is 3 batches. I think there's more than that now. Let me double check. We're going to have a look at... We're going to click the button for... Where is it? Reveal and Explorer. And then we'll go to gameplay. Yeah, there is a 4th batch. So we're going to stick the 4th batch in here. I'm going to import these guys. And that'll do that. The 4 batches, another... That's a lot. And then I think there was another... Yeah, 21 and 22 we have here for Demon's Souls proper. So that'll all get ingested now. We'll import those files. Those will be getting their peaks rendered while we're are generated while we're see down here in the bottom right. They're all, if we don't do anything, if we start hitting play on stuff, that pauses. It's like
you look at the original PS3 model,
waits its turn. So the interviews that we're basing this on is it's one interview with 3 people, but we will be spreading it out and splitting it up. We're trying to make this feel as grand as possible. And quite frankly, we got a really long interview out of them, and we covered a shitload of stuff. So there's a lot of meat on this bone right now. But it is only that. So that's why there's only this one timeline, and then this I guess there's 2 audio tracks. One of them is the Shadowplay recording itself, and then this one here is I guess that's the microphone from the Shadowplay, and then the one underneath it is my Audacity recording, which I also do here. As you can see, when we're doing this, I also record Audacity because I captured this with Shadowplay, and for some reason Shadowplay, the mic recording is just raspy and like it peaks a lot, and I don't know why, because the input on it I always set lower. I set it's like 60% or something, but it always seems to just sound shit, so I always do a backup. So that's why those are there, the 3 of them. Although my one here seems to have a lot of... Why is this here? Let me check this, because that seems to have a lot of audio on it.
The scope of the game really led to the strengths of our studio to basically...
Yeah, I don't know why, actually. Maybe I got confused. Maybe that's the...
They say we've been building our technology.
Yeah, I don't know. Did I record their audio accidentally on Audacity? I don't know. Anyway, I should ask Jeremy. Not that I need it, because I don't really come up at all in this at all. There's actually just one bit at the end where I talk. So where did he put that in? Oh, I think I might have just muted them all. Actually, I went through and muted them all. I did. Okay, I gotta fix that. Anyway, so let's have a little example of what we're looking at here. We're going to set it at 1/8 quality because we are working with 4K gameplay here for quite a lot of this. So let's have a look at maybe this section I've just started to chop away at.
They really are the masters of the remaster, and they've taken...
So this is me just separating out this this shot of him with a bit of a crop on it and moving it. This is just to... Basically, the way I like to edit stuff is in layers. So first of all, you do your assembly build, right? Which is basically what Jeremy has done here. If we just got rid of all this B-roll on top, which is what is the story we're telling? What's the order of the story we're telling, right? We were introducing Blue Point. We were talking about, what it's like getting all the source material. We are incrementally moving our way through the story, right? We're not immediately talking about a big boss fight. We're not immediately talking about, launch or anything like that. Just the general, if you were telling somebody a story, how would you do it type of thing, right? You're not trying to make sure every single sentence is perfect or it all leans into each other perfectly. You're just doing a first draft of this is probably the order we want this in. And as you're doing that assembly build, you're also basically deleting stuff that isn't going to make it. You are trimming the fat. You are taking bits out which are superfluous, or somebody basically saying something that the other person already said, or something that's not very interesting. You're basically pulling all that out. Once you're done with the assembly build, you are then essentially putting some B-roll on top. And this B-roll, at least when I try and do it, and I think Jeremy is quite similar, is basically just matching B-roll. Again, you're not trying to make sure that every single cut is perfect. You're not lingering too much on one part of the doc, because the reason why you do this sort of like 80-20 approach, right, where you do 80% of the work, and instead of that last 20 always takes as long as the first 80 is kind of the rule. And if you're editing and you're basically like tweaking the finery of every single shot, that's when projects run over. That's when, instead of 2 days working on edit, you're working on one part of it. Takes 3 days, and then ultimately 2 weeks later, when you are actually finalizing that doc, you're probably going to change a bunch of that, or maybe it gets swapped to a different place. So if you do too much work on any one of those parts, you basically end up doing a bunch of redundant work that you are then fixing. So that's why, for instance, right here in this section, I'm tackling this section. I'm not doing the whole motion graphics treatment for this thing yet. I haven't figured it out. I don't know what we're going to do. I know I want to establish his face at one stage so people understand who's speaking early in the sentence, and then I think it cuts probably here back to gameplay.
They really are the masters of the remaster, and they've taken several of our internal titles and made wonderful remakes from them.
One cool thing about these shitty Zoom interviews is that you can actually do like harsh cuts between that's not one big sentence. I did cut here 4 times, but
made wonderful remakes from them.
you get away with it a little bit. You get away with it in a way that if Jeremy had filmed this, it would look like total shit if I cut it like that. But people don't seem to care with this sort of stuff for whatever reason.
From Gravity Rush, Shadow of the Colossus, and now obviously Demon's Souls. We always wanted to do Demon's Souls, but the problem was that...
So this is... it's messy. There's little cuts and blips and boops there. I think Jeremy put a little constant gain on this, or constant power, to take the edge off the cut there. But it's messy, right? And that's fine, because at the moment, we're not trying to make every single thing perfect. If we do, this hour-long documentary is going to take forever to edit. So no, there will be a time when we're going through this documentary where it'll be cleaning up every little second, every little frame of this thing, making sure that we've covered everything off, but it's not now. Now is just, let's get the content on the timeline, let's build what this thing is. So to that end, here I have a black video with a yellow color, little yellow marker on it. So I've just labeled it and I've made it yellow.
We always wanted to do Demon's Souls.
So all this is, for me, is I have created this top timeline here, which I guess there's some other stuff on it here, but I'll crunch all that down. Where I have basically signaled that yellow in my head, I don't have it logged or anything, but I'm the only person editing this part. Yellow is box shots. So I know I'm going to put box shots all the way here. And then we're going to cut out of that.
So yeah, our picking is really...
And we have our second person, and we're going to do probably graphics and who this person is. And I just moved it to that side because I think he was on that side. And also, let's mix it up over here. So again, your brain thinks it's someone else.
The games that we're most fond of. Yeah, I mean, like, it happened on the back of our heads, wanting to do Demon's Souls for a while, and knowing, that...
Same type of thing. Again, music is a little bit loud. That's fine. We're not trying to make everything perfect right now. That music is probably going to be changed and swapped and moved around quite a lot. I mean, I'm not going to change the music, but it's going to get moved around a lot. If I have to, delete a scene and move all of this stuff over here, then, I don't want to spend forever working on the, tiny little... save your projects, the cadence or the gain or the intro to the music, if ultimately this thing is going to get shuffled around for the next 3 weeks. But I am interested in having some box shots here, so I'll put that there, and then I think this is our third person.
Out of the Colossus, that we've pushed our studio to a new height and accomplished new things and grown our art department, and starting to look more at our design department and in different aspects of the...
So again, more box shots, and then that. And then red video here, I think this red one, which again is just a black video layer with rows attached to it. Could have made it a color layer, but it felt redundant. This is for PS3 gameplay, I believe.
The minute Demon's Souls came up as an option, I remember being in the conference room with our leads group and sitting around the table and talking.
Yeah, for this I'm basically putting in some PS3 Demon's Souls footage. So one of the first things I did here was Jeremy had a lot of PS4 Demon's Souls footage in here, or sorry, PS5, the new Demon's Souls footage in here, which was totally appropriate for the things they're talking about.
The go ahead and the inspiration to say, okay, let's really go for this one.
Right, because that's what they're talking about. But one of the editing choices that I decided to take was that I didn't want there to be footage of the PS5 version of Demon's Souls yet, because we are going to build to that, because the story is about how they created it, right? So I wanted to be not today thinking about the project. I wanted to imagine that we are with them in their imagination at the start of the project when Demon's Souls wasn't created. So visually I want that to be the case as well, which is why we're going to look at boxes, like old boxes, because that's all they've got to run off of is source material, and then eventually we'll show the gameplay of Demon's Souls running on PS3, and eventually we will get to a place where we're starting to show off a little bit more. So I probably won't even put it here. Like, Jeremy put some awesome PS5 footage here.
We can look at it and say, oh, well, we are going to upgrade the physics engine and replace it completely anyway. Certain rendering things, we're going to replace all of the rendering pieces of this game. So
that works. So that maybe I will leave that there, or maybe I'll swap it out, or maybe I'll do a side-by-side, just to sort of like tiptoe into a world from which we're showing both. So I've already done a pass of this whole documentary once to get the assembly right and basically build a script off of Jeremy's assembly. Oh, but actually, I've got two scripts. There's two things I want to show you. This is the script that I've put together for the doc based on the edit. So here's me saying, Danny, an intro about the impact of the genre, an opportunity to bring this to a new audience, designing the game, changing things, creative license, who are Bluepoint? And then that whole section is basically what's in black. So every time we get a section that is a color that is split up then by these sort of black video here, little buffers, that is a new part of the doc. So how does this work? How do you remake a game? These are just basic, like, top line things that I will then, write a script referencing. These are just like little footnotes for me. At the moment, I say it's 5 minutes because it's at about the 5 minute mark where this happens. Yeah, 4:57 there. 15 minutes here. Let's talk about design. We have a lot to talk about. Level design. And then we're into Boletarian Palace. And then this section's about research and design. This one's about mocap. This one's about the Flame Lurker controversy with the trailer. So it's basically just me like splitting this whole thing up. Again, I'm not trying to write the entire script first time, because if you keep setting yourself these fucking mountains to climb, then it's just a slog. You're just climbing mountain after mountain after mountain. All I really want to do at this stage is to get a snapshot of what this project looks like. So I watched through it once, which takes a while. It's 56 minutes. I didn't do it sped up because it was hard, because it was 4K. I didn't want to do that. So I went through it and, it basically took down some little notes, and every once in a while jump in and delete or tweet something or tweak something. But for the most part, I was just letting it play, writing bits and bobs of, things. And while I was doing it, I actually thought about some additional shots that Jeremy might want to do. Lots of shots of the books of all the Souls games, shots of the discs themselves. There was a part where they talked about removing the source code, or like getting access to materials on the disc itself. Shots of Japanese manual, because we have the manual in Japanese. That was a big part of it. So that's what this looks like. This is this whole thing, and then what the outro is going to look like. All stuff like that. So it's a basic script that then I will basically, what this will look like more in the future will be like this, right? Where there's like a whole chunk of text, and then it's just this thing is just a marker to let me know what the doc is about. And then eventually this will be the script that I send to our captioneer, Megan. So it'll have like a basic structure of what I say written down, and also, she'll have to basically do all the VO for our interviewees. Sorry, I'm yawning a bit. A bit of a late night last night with work, and then my kid is a bit sick at the moment, so I didn't have a great night's sleep last night. And then the other one I want to show you is this. This is the script that I had up while I was doing the interviews. So that whole time I probably was like this, where I had like half the screen was them, and then half the screen was me here. And this was the original setup, was that we were going to split it into two, but then I realized that the three of them had done an interview together over at Digital Foundry, and it was really good. So I was like, oh no, actually, let's just get you all together. That's fine. FTC, thanks to Sony, I always put in at the top of a Sony thing, because whenever we work with Sony, they're like, we have this FTC guideline now. If we give you anything, or if we do anything, if we give you assets or anything, you have to legally like say that we've done that. So I always write that there just in case there's something. I don't think there's anything they've given us for this, so I don't think I need to mention it. Like if they gave us a copy of the game or something, I'd have to mention it, but they've not given us anything. So I think our PR over at Sony probably mentioned it at the top of the interview, so I just wrote it down. And then this was the chat. So we've Gavin, who left Japan Studios about a week later, which was why this interview was kind of rushed together last minute. I wasn't quite sure why they were doing it. I figured something like that, if he was moving or something, I couldn't tell. And then Marco and Pete are the guys from Bluepoint. So that's I just had the names up there, because sometimes you forget people's names. You got to make sure you have them on the page, or if you do have them on the page, and it lets your brain work on other things, and you're not constantly trying to remember people's names. I done my research on these guys, so I knew Gavin, of course, and I watched interviews with Marco and Peter before, so there was that. But often you just have the names there. There's nothing wrong. in case you can just glance up and see it. And then this is basically what I was looking at. These were my notes that I had built over maybe 2 or 3 days of thinking about the game, right? And then during the interview, I'm actually kind of like sometimes deleting stuff or moving stuff or bringing stuff up, or I'm like, oh, we didn't talk about this. We didn't talk about the interface stuff. So I'm going to do that. I'll put that up there. And these were just like little headers, so I remember exactly what it is. And usually with developer interviews, I'm not this detailed. The reason this one was this detailed was because I only had these guys for about 90 minutes and I didn't want to waste a single second. We actually ended up running over because they seemed to be enjoying themselves. So the whole thing was about 2 hours instead. They were happy to keep going, basically, which was amazing because Gavin was in Japan and 2 guys were on Austin time, so I think it was like stupid o'clock for Gavin. But yeah, it was a lot of like this sort of stuff, like making sure that there were certain things we hit upon, animations, timing it with the mocap, because I knew, for instance, that the timing on the animations in the game is the same, but they'd mocapped everything. So I was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you make it so that, you know, when you're doing mocap, that it's to the exact same timing as an old ass game? So there's a whole part in this doc where we get Gavin talking about them using a metronome during the mocap session, right? So it's stuff like that. It's just trying to figure out like where might there be interesting stuff to talk about. Where have they already talked about on an if they've talked about something on another interview already, I also make note of that, which means that I don't need them saying that. I can just do that in the voiceover myself. That's free. I can say like, oh, this such and such. I can spend more time not having them repeat themselves, because also that's a thing that if you're interviewing someone who's already talked about their game a bunch, they're going to go in the same direction. They have a path of least resistance in their brain when it comes to talking about these projects that they're probably going to follow down if you're not careful. So for that, I got to make sure that I'm it's just me checking it's still recording. I gotta make sure that I'm staying away from getting them to stay away from that as much as possible. So redoing the camera, I knew that was a big part I wanted to focus on, which is great. The other thing I wanted to do is I basically tried to keep each one of these to a different part of the game. I wanted them talking about different areas of the game. For this, it wasn't that tricky because there's sort of 5 archstones you can go by. But for instance, when we talked about the design of the game, we spent a lot of time on the Boletarian Palace, because I thought that's an area where everyone who's played Dark or Demon Souls at least will have familiarity with. You know, there's a lot of early game gameplay that Frank can get as well without having to kill himself. A lot of interesting stuff. But then, for instance, like when we were talking about the camera, I introduced that question asking in relation to the Tower of Latria, because I figured that would be a challenge, that the Tower of Latria, it being a sort of enclosed area, might be like a tricky place. I think there's actually not much B-roll of it. I think it might be around here or something. That it might be a tricky part of the game to design the camera for. So that's great, because it means that we have a whole section where we get to show off a bunch of the Tower of Latria footage. I don't know where the fuck it is on this thing. I have to look into that again. And then, like, for instance, right at the end, I think we managed them to get to talk about the what's it called, the Valley of Defilement, right? So in relation to sort of some of the level design propagation sort of AI stuff that they had working in there. So we get that in there as well. So just making sure that there's, you know, in the script, as much as possible, getting them to talk about as many different aspects, and also getting them visually, you know, or talking about areas that we can visually then hook in to the doc, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. So yeah, it was cool. Like, we covered off a lot of this. It didn't happen in this order. This is just like a Rolodex for me to refer to. Like, we talked about flame lurkers, the design. They actually brought it up, so I didn't have to talk about it. Shout out to Vadi Vidya there in my notes too. I had a bunch of like character redesign section. I knew that they obviously like done a lot of redesigning. I was thinking of the Vanguard demon at the start. The sewn remains of the Boletarian bosses here that look like Black Phantoms, because that was actually in a Vadi video that I'd seen that nobody had talked about, so I got them to talk about that. So it was neat. So we covered off a lot, and that's where Jeremy sort of left the project. Where I want to now show you is before we swap over to Loop Hero, another Jeremy Jane special, is showing you what happened with the trailer. So I edited this trailer in about 3 hours. One night I was looking at Frank's footage, and I went over here, and because Frank, as we've covered in other episodes of Edit Club, does these incredible jobs of logging this footage, so all the names have like 1-1, Part 6, Dragon Bridge, Dodge Fire, Photo Zoom, Best Shot. So this ends up being like absolutely critical in us getting these documentaries made fast, is that he's able to do that. Not because I can just go through them here and basically just kind of take a look, you know, and be like, okay, best shots at 458. Okay, let's go to 458 and we'll check it out, see what his best shot is. Oh yeah, that's the best shot. That's a good shot, Frank. Done. Doom. Pull it over, and now it's in the dock, right? Should have used that in the trailer, actually. But what I ended up doing is, so he's photo mode, he wrote there, right? So what I can do is type photo, and there we go. There's all the photo mode shots. They're just here because he's logged them properly. So I just have them. And it's like, okay, so I ended up doing that and like picking off all these shots. That's such a good one. Didn't use that in the trailer either. I used the other one. I used this one. Yeah, look at that. Look at that shot. Beautiful photo mode shot. So basically, I just started pulling them onto the timeline, and I was like, oh, you can just piece these together. And this is a trailer, and all I have to do is get 2 or 3 quotes, and we have a trailer. And then that's what this ended up being.
As different titles get thrown around, what about this title? What about that title? The minute it came up as an option, it felt like a great fit.
Everything in these levels had to tell a story. Every room had to tell a story. It had to have a meaning. What did they do there before the fog came, and what happened when the fog came?
And it was just an exercise in matching the right ones, in telling a story. So the initial shots are a bit more vague. I mean, if you've played the game, you know that that's the second area of the Tower of Latria. With the change, you'll probably recognize it. This one here, also, I guess that's I don't know what we're calling that. Is that the second bonfire? And this is because this is the back end of the first area of Latria. This is where you have one of the first fights. This shot also is super cropped in because he's in the shot. This is the beauty of filming in 4K, is that this is actually the shot, but you can see Frank in the corner.
This title, what about that
And that's what I originally had it, but you could see him super easily, so I had to punch in.
title? The minute.
But you'd never know because it's all filmed in 4K. And then, here's a character, but it's not, this is the shopkeeper from the Palace of Boletaria, the first area. And then eventually we sort of, this is a bit of this is a Demon Souls ass looking guy, but this area doesn't look very Demon Soulsy unless you've played it. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't look like a quintessential Demon Souls area if you're unfamiliar with the games. Obviously, once you've seen this, if you've played Demon Souls, it's pretty obvious what game this is. And then the idea between the cross dissolves was very much like try and make the dissolves make some sort of sense. I'm just going to mute the music for a second. Where like, this is easy. Your eye line is probably going to be somewhere here. So we'll have this one pick up, and there's a bit more forward motion because this one kind of looks static. It's pushing in, but it actually looks like a static shot, which was a bit of a problem for me because I didn't want it to look like a photograph, which it kind of does. You can see a little bit of movement on the clouds, so that helps. And then the eyeline stuff or crossing over like this. There's a face to a face. And then this one, I'm going to mute them as well. This one goes into a totally different color space. This one I liked the fact that there was... I knew I was going to go from one character to another character that looked a bit more Demon Soulsy, so I put them both sort of facing each other a little bit here. This one I think is a match cut with the red eye, so it goes from red eye here to red eye on the Vanguard. I think this shot is very differently framed. It's like there, yeah. So pushed in a bit on him. All these beautiful like little dots. Like this is all in game. This is why it was so easy to make, because I didn't have to put any of this shit in here. It's like fake 3D. These are all just little particles in the game. And then cut from him to something a bit brighter. You know, anything that during a cross dissolve really looks striking right away. And you can try to make the dissolves as long as possible. That's the most Demon Souls looking thing you can imagine. This one's super slow. Again, this is one of the first bosses you meet, one of the first enemies you meet on the 5th Archstone. 5th working Archstone. Is that what you call them? Is this 5? Did they skip 4? Is that how it works? It goes 1, 2, 3, then the broken one. 5, 6? I forget. This tree also gets hit by lightning in the game on the remake, so I thought it was a neat one to include. And then we have one of our nasty fucking bell-ringing weirdos from the Tower of Latria, and it just looks so good. And then I wanted to end on like a really nice shot and then really nice transition, and I thought his weird tentacle face really sticking in there alongside this was a good last one. Oh yeah, and there's like a fake music thing here because I faded out this like Maiden in Black like low, you know, kind of low stress version, and it stuck the Demon Souls trailer music under it just to ramp up the stress.
Evaluating every step to make sure you weren't harming what is a PlayStation classic and making sure that you're complementing the classic instead.
Because the trailer version has all those little effects of like the sort of weird spiritual effects that are happening there. And then, yeah, I just figured to stick that on the end. Hit black. Donk. Simple as. Started editing at 10 o'clock one night when I should have gone to bed. 1 a.m. it was done. So, can't complain. Here's some shots we didn't use. That was a bit too obvious. There's some dragons. There's another shot of dragons. It's a big fucking dragon. I probably wasn't going to use that. Look at all this. Look at this 4K footage, though. Look at this shit. Looks so good. This documentary's going to look so good. Thank you, Frank. There's the bug at the end. Not sure what that's. Here's a line I didn't use.
Obviously, the original code base is Japanese, so is the original development team. So when you're saying, like, here's a dump of design documents, none of us can read them. Sony went through and actually had this all translated, so we'd get these gigantic translated documents back to them. In the end, it may turn out it's like, oh, this was an outdated document, right? It's like, you just never know.
So that made sense. It was tricky to understand what he was saying that fast during a trailer. And also the end of the anecdote was a little bit hard to understand.
In the end, it may turn out it's like, oh, this was an outdated document, right? It's like, you just never know.
He says, it's like a lot, so it was kind of, didn't really work. So that's why the quotes, the 4 quotes that I use are like fairly easy to understand.
In these levels had to tell a story. Every room had to tell a story. It had to have a meaning. What did they do there before the fog came, and what happened when the fog came?
Very simple concept, right? A couple of sentences. So that was the Demon Souls project. That was the trailer. It was easy. I have an extra gameplay dump here. So all the gameplay footage that Jeremy put in at the start, that was the Demon Souls stuff. Obviously, he's already trimmed all this. He's already found good shots. So instead of deleting it off the timeline here to replace it with this footage, I've just put it in the extra gameplay dump bin. And the reason for that is because around here, Jeremy starts running out of gameplay of Demon Souls on PS5. Although I should also mention that since Jeremy, I think Jeremy he had access to none of the gameplay footage from the PS3 version, and I think only the first like 14 batches of gameplay that Frank worked on. Frank has since done an extra, 8 or so batches of gameplay. So we've loads extra to put in, and that's the Demon Souls documentary coming July 2021. Thief will be done start of July. This will be done closer to the end of July. We'll also Prey around that time as well, and some other cool projects we're working on. But now we're going to swap over to a different project. Let's check in on Loop Hero. Hello and welcome back to part 2. This is actually being recorded 2 days later because Premiere was having an absolute mare opening up this project. In fact, it couldn't open a bunch of legacy projects. So I did the usual stuff of clearing the cache and and holding down shift on startup to clear the plugin cache and all that sort of stuff, and nothing really worked. And then we just got some mail delivered to the house. It was for the wrong house. So what I did was I just opened the project because I knew I was going to be gone for 20 minutes, and came back, and it finally opened. It was hanging on like 80% every time I tried to open it, but it has opened now, and hopefully it looks like it's actually running. So we'll be able to take a look at this. Also, in the intervening 2 days, I have gotten a sore throat, so apologies if I'm a little bit raspy, and also if I'm taking breaks to drink some of this delicious Taco Bell my wife brought me. You're getting a real cross-day experience here of my life. As I'm recording this, audio looks good. Okay, this thing keeps saying one of the things that I hate the most about recording audio is I still have programs to try and take over the microphone level here on Audacity, and it happens during my recording on Giant Bomb. It happens during my recording on Noclip stuff, and so that's why I keep looking down at that. Anyway, I think the main reason we want to look at this Loop Hero doc, aside from the fact that terrific edit by Mr. Jeremy Jane, is this the captioning stuff, because this probably won't come up again for a little while. So I want to highlight it, especially as I mentioned in the previous video, the support for this was pretty terrible before. It was just broken. It was a system that just frankly did not work as intended. You could not, for instance, well, let me get it up first of all. I think I've closed it. Let's have a look at our windows here. Progress, project, reference monitor, timelines, time code, source. Where is it? If I double click on it, do I get it maybe? What if I right click on it? Oh yeah, I double click did the job. Text. Okay, it was under text. Was there text in here? Extensions maybe? No. Wouldn't be in workspaces anyway. By the way, if you are new to Premiere, you really should check out I think it's the Learning Workspace, which is pretty good actually for helping you sort of develop some of the fundamentals of assembly cuts, and editing, and effects and all that sort of stuff. But here's the new text area, I guess. C1 subtitle. So we can export here to a text file or to an SRT. An SRT is essentially it's kind of formatted as it's written here. It's some time codes and then some sentences, which usually have a page break in them. But the way this works is really neat, because so before you kind of had to have one big layer, which would sit in a video layer. It's now given its own subtitle layer, which is really cool. Also, you can make it appear, and you can just render the video with the subtitles burnt into it, or you can have them turned off. Actually, I think it's a separate toggle in the export. It's not even if it's visible or not visible, but it's handy if you're, for instance, monitoring your subtitles here.
Я бы просто в целом скопом сказал, что мы пытаемся делать.
Unfortunately, it does render the text of this also with with the same quality settings. So if I have it into 1.8 for whatever reason, if I do playback, it doesn't show it super nice. This is kind of like a nice stylized subtitle here. As you can see, we can actually choose. But when you export it, of course, the SRT, I'll actually show you the process of that if you want to see. And if I open my Loop Hero project here, here is a test export.srt. And if I was to open that up, for instance, you can open this up in a notepad. It's totally fine. That's basically what an SRT looks like. That's what a subtitle thing looks like. You don't really need to have the milliseconds here, but I guess that's how they did it. So the line breaks, for instance, if I was to some of the line breaks are intentional just to make sure that these don't overrun. Oh, there's one that is it will do an automatic text break as well if you want, but I always try to do the line breaks myself. I think that's more standard for subtitles. But anyway, this is all to say that this section means that you can basically sort of just mess around with the length. So if I want to bring this back here, look at the top left of the screen, you actually see the time code changed there. And if I move it, the time code's changed. So this is, as you would imagine this would work. This is not how it worked in the past. So now it's way easier. You can even put subtitles before other subtitles. You actually change the text on the screen, so you can just say poop here, and then it's there. So if you never used their old SRT, you're probably looking at this going, yeah, it looks exactly the way it should. It works exactly the way I would have imagined it worked. It did not do this before. And doing the Final Fantasy 14 subtitles involved, like, you were basically like catching these things and dragging a little pin, and it was just an absolute nightmare. So for this, it was pretty handy because we basically had all these subtitles. We actually had we had a pretty complex captioning process for this because we had 4 different subtitles to do. We had only English speakers, we had only Russian speakers in both languages. So we had, let me start that again. We had English subtitles start to finish for everyone. So that's for people who, you know, maybe cannot see this, who speak English. Then we had English subs for just the Russian speakers. So that's for people who maybe don't have any sight issues, but, you know, don't know Russian. So that's most people probably who watched the video. Then we also did the same, basically reversed for Russians. So we had full closed captions for Russian people. And then also we had Russian subs on the Jeremy parts. Be it script or stand-ups, which he did here.
Hero may look startlingly similar to Loop Hero, and I recommend you play it because it's kind of freaky how similar it is. But there's an extra twist to the story.
One thing I want to look at, actually, because I don't think I ever looked at it, was the trick he did at the start. Where was it? Over here. Let's see how he did this. Let's break it down, shall we? Is this it here? Yeah, this is it. Okay. So let's just play it back first of all. This is during the intro to the Loop Hero doc. If you've not seen it, about 28 seconds in, Jeremy does this. Come on, you can do it. There we go.
A descent into danger through which the hero gathers the skills that they'll need to one day triumph, and then returns home having changed. In The Hero with 1,000 Faces, mythologist Joseph...
A little bit of coughing and wheezing by my computer here to try and do that.
Then returns home having changed.
I guess this was in 4K, so that's 2 4K video files. Well, it's not really, it's just one transition it's having trouble with. So let's see what he did. Is it just a simple cross dissolve? Okay. So what is he dissolving? Let's have a look at this. So let's turn one of these off. Oh, is he fading it? Oh, you genius. Oh. Okay. So he's masking it, I guess? And is that a feather on the mask? Let's have a look. He has a crop here. Oh, it's just a feather on the crop. Okay. Very nice. So this one here is just him doing talking, and walking off stage. Okay. And then this one is... So you can see it's kind of moved a couple of times because he probably was messing around with it. There's probably too many keyframes in here. He didn't need to do them all. But, you know, obviously he was just messing around with it. So he had there, and went in again. But basically between here and here, it goes from an 81% crop on the right here. So he's only showing about 20%. And then it basically opens up as he enters. And presumably as the other one exits. Oh, it's right on the line. Look at that. That's cool. That's real nifty. Can we... Oh, there's a little bit of a light bloom there. Which one is that from? What source is that from? That must be from the top one. That's in the bottom. How did that happen? Oh, because he covered it up. So there was a light source down here that when he moved out of the way, we were suddenly catching. So how did he fix that? Does that get blurred out? We just never notice it? So it appears, and then it's in this one too, is it? Oh, it is, of course. So it's just part of the background. And then he covers it up again, okay. Because I was wondering, would there be a flicker? I guess you have to be kind of careful with the fade, because otherwise... Yeah, look at that. Nicely done. Can we see, is there any way of telling? So is he casting a shadow anywhere on this side here? Let's try and turn up the quality here. So there's no real Jeremy shadow. The only shadow change that happens, I see it here in the crease, which happens maybe when because the light behind him is reflecting off of his back and then this way. So maybe it's that, or maybe there's a light source over here, and when this Jeremy enters, which one are we looking at here? We're looking at, oh no, we're looking at this. We're looking at source Jeremy. Oh, or is that the fade? Is that the fade we're watching? It is the fade we're watching. Okay, so the light was slightly different. I'm guessing when he left frame or something. Oh yeah, see, there's a shadow there. So he's got a shadow there. Okay, so let's have a look at the source then and see if he would have cast a shadow on the back wall. As he exits, he does. See, there's a shadow here. This is fun. As he's in shot here, there is actually a shadow from the light that's to his left as he's facing the camera. And then as he walks off, the shadow moves there. But we don't see that because he's there. So you can actually see the shadow disappear. Look, watch. So the shadow's there right now. And then as this mask comes across, his shadow disappears. So Jeremy's shadow is now gone here. Because, is that right? Is that, yeah, it is. Because right now the fade is here. Yeah. So his shadow has disappeared there. Jeremy's shadow is there. Jeremy's shadow is gone. Because the fade has come in. But you never notice. It's a smooth transition. It's a very smooth transition. Nicely done, Mr. Jane. But it looks smooth because he lit it well. Like he was anticipating, I'm sure, some of that stuff. And he nailed it. Very simple trick. But adds a lot to it. And the only way you'd notice is by looking at the shadow here disappearing at the bottom right. There, as it does that. But also, by the time that happens, you're looking at this new Jeremy. Who's this new Jeremy coming in? Wild. Yeah, and then the only thing I added to this, because I don't want to talk to Jeremy's experience editing this too much, because I didn't do any of it, but I added some bits and bobs, tweaked some of this. We put the Ludum Dare thing, like the motion graphics I did were kind of in this section. So, this part.
And ours begins with the internet's favorite game jam, Ludum Dare.
I'll put that up because I figured people would know what Ludum Dare was, and then put that there to give it a bit more context.
But first, if you're not fluent in Russian, now would be the time to enable captions, unless you learn new languages.
I don't know what video he got this from. Which one did we do before? Because this video wasn't rendered by the time he did this, and I did not put this in myself. He did this himself. I think I put the background in. I made like a Loop Hero-esque background here, which I used on some of the backgrounds just to give it a bit more depth, because otherwise it was just a black area. I thought it added something nice to it. I don't know, I'm guessing. I mean, we put captions in all our videos, right? So I've got that there. And then I'll put some of this stuff in. Just to, he said like, oh, I did this documentary with my friend Danny, so I wanted to contextualize that I did the interviews. And the only reason I did that is because he actually had a reference to me asking them a question at the end of this doc, so we needed to. So this part here.
And I made this documentary alongside my friend Danny because I'm a little obsessed with Loop Hero.
So I thought this would be a neat way of just like explaining, here is a Zoom call, I'm on the call, and Volia over here is doing amazing work interpreting and translating everything we did. And like I said, when I did this project, I didn't know Jeremy was going to edit it. And then when we went into the edit, the only reason I asked him to contextualize this, we had one round of feedback where I basically kind of gave Jeremy a bit more. I said, like, let's do a little bit more voiceover here and there, because he's basically the oxygen of this piece, because at least for English speakers, because there's a lot of listening to Russian and reading subtitles, which can be really difficult on the viewer. It's work, right? So that's why I asked him to put in a little bit more voiceover and stuff to basically guide the viewer, reestablish some things that they said that you might have missed, that type of thing. But the only reason I asked to reference me at the start was because this part was in the doc, and it was basically the only way either of us knew how to finish it. Excellent. I think Ludum Dare 48 starts in 32 days. Are you going to enter?
No. Not at all. Мы теперь будем трижды думать перед каждым Ludum Dare.
So we thought that was like a fun way of ending the piece, because otherwise they were just deep into patch talk and design talk. We didn't have an outro for it really, and Jeremy didn't have a stand up for the outro, which I guess he could have done if we didn't have an outro, but that was a strong enough fun outro. And also it's at the end of the interview. Like, most of the guys could understand English to some degree, but we needed Volia there to really help with them, and also to allow them to reply in Russian, because I really do, you know, I'm from a European country that speaks English, but we have our own language too. And I'm very into the idea of us empowering, you know, other cultures to speak with their own native tongue. So obviously it was nice for them to be able to respond in English, and you know, it's difficult, complex stuff they're talking about, right? So it's easier for them to do it in their mother tongue, of course. Yeah, so that was the only reason we had me in, and that line at the start. I don't have an ego. It was well, I know I have an ego, but I don't have that much of an ego. It was to basically make it so that people understood why the fuck I turned up at the end of the documentary, because it just would have been very, very strange otherwise if I'd done that. All right, that's going to do it, I think, for this month's Edit Club. I'm trying to think, is there anything else in here that was of interest? A lot of little bits and bobs, motion graphics here and there. They had a lot of Game Jam games, and there's a lot of text on the screen at different times, so it was just a lot of like prioritizing stuff. Like, you know, you didn't really need to know these guys' names that badly because you already weren't listening to their, you know, if you're already doing subtitles, you're probably not connecting with much of them very, you know, too much, especially if there's 4 people and it's a short video. So we didn't prioritize the thirds over anything else necessarily. Jeremy did a great job of framing this one, and I just did the lower third up there because I knew like there was basically no way, unless we introduced them one by one, which would have been weird, of having a lower third on screen without the subtitles being up, which also meant that we couldn't put the lower thirds in the lower thirds because then the subtitles would be covering them. So we needed to, you know, that's why I did a lot of this sort of stuff where we put the names of the Game Jam games up in these big black boxes, so it was super obvious, and you know, you could read them if you wanted to. The idea was that you catch enough of these that you saw the name of the game and you saw that there was a theme every time. Each of these Ludendares, there was a theme, and the basic payoff was sort of right at the end. We could say, oh, here is, you know, this all culminated in boom, Ludendare 45, start with nothing, and then we start talking about Lupat Hero. Yeah, and that was it. Fun little documentary. Jeremy had a lot of production work for, you know, pretty modest runtime for us, at least 21 minutes, but there was a lot of work on this one, detailed stuff to make this thing readable, a couple of different go-arounds, but the basic framework for the doc he had nailed first time around. It was just a case of spending the last couple of weeks making sure that it was a pleasant viewing experience for people, because subtitles always provides a sort of a new series of hoops and things you really have to think about when you're producing and really consider for the viewer. You really have to put yourself in the viewer's position, sit back, watch, read the subtitles even though you know what they're saying, and try and imagine what it would be like the first time you read this. And I think, you know, there's a certain amount of difficulty when it comes to this stuff that you just can't avoid, but with enough time and enough sort of, you know, loops of the edit yourself, you can really make it easier for people. So I hope we did that. At least people seem to be into it. Awesome job with Jeremy and the edit. It was an absolute pleasure. This and Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls will be coming out soon. I'm also working on the Thief documentary is what I'm primarily editing at the moment, which is going to be a lot of fun. And Prey coming too. So plenty more edit clubs to cover over the next couple of weeks and months. Thank you so much for supporting us as ever. My throat is in bits, so I'm going to leave it here at a close. I'm glad Premiere opened the dock at least. And yeah, if you have any suggestions for older projects as well, I'm always interested in checking back on those. Please stick them in the comments. But thank you for your support. I hope you enjoyed this month's Edit Club, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.